We are live to YouTube. Got time to think about it.
Good evening. Welcome, bienvenue, Anine. I'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging with respect that we are in the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Before we enter into the formal aspects of the agenda, I'd like to address the community and note that last week was one of the most challenging and heartbreaking weeks that we have had in Sault Ste. Marie's history, which added to the heartbreak our community has felt from events over the last several months. On behalf of the city, I want to reiterate that I extend our community's collective condolences and support to the families and loved ones of the victims of the recent tragedies. They have suffered losses far too great, greater than anyone should ever have to experience. It is incredibly important that together, as a community, we stand with them and our first responders who have responded to calls that we would never have expected, never have expected in our city, and continue to do so with the utmost professionalism and compassion. Our community grieves as we try to reckon with inconceivable acts of violence. Brian Sweeney, the father of Angie Sweeney, is with us in council chambers today. Brian, I have been incredibly impressed by and it has been a great source of strength to see the courage that you and your family have shown in these difficult times. And I thank you all for being here today with us. Sault Ste. Marie is a strong and caring community. I've witnessed or heard about many examples of this recently. I encourage people to continue looking out for one another and offering support during this incredibly challenging time, especially to those directly affected by the recent violence. I understand that people are scared, they're sad, and they're shaken right now. These are natural reactions to the horrific acts that we have seen in our community. As your mayor, I know that together with council, we will work with our partner agencies to find out how we can best serve our community and keep it safe. We will do everything we can to ensure we get the mix of services that our residents need and deserve. Tonight's council meeting and the resolution we have before us to declare gender-based violence and intimate partner violence an epidemic represents an important action that we can take. I know the Renfrew inquest found that violence of this nature is at epidemic levels across Ontario, and I have no hesitation accepting their facts as the starting point for the discussion we will have this evening. I think it's important for our community leaders to use the platforms we're afforded to elevate important issues and causes in an effort to advance change. As your mayor, I want to use tonight to draw some attention to key facts about intimate partner violence, IPV, and gender-based violence, GBV. The World Health Organization identifies IPV as a major global public health concern, as it affects millions of people and can result in immediate and long-lasting health, social, and economic consequences. IPV impacts people of all genders, ages, socioeconomic, racial, educational, ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds. However, women account for the vast majority of people who experience this form of gender-based violence, and it is most often perpetrated by men. Everyone has a right to live free from violence. However, many Canadians across the country continue to face violence every day because of their gender, gender expression, gender identity, or perceived gender. This is referred to as gender-based violence, and it is a violation of human rights. Certain populations are more likely to experience GBV, including young women and girls, Indigenous women and girls, members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, women living in northern, rural, and remote communities, and women living with disabilities. As is the case with many forms of violence, those who experience IPV or GBV often do not report it to the police for a variety of reasons, including fear of stigma or shame, the belief that abuse is a private matter, fear of the court system intervention, or lack of trust in the criminal justice system. By offering this information tonight, I hope that it will encourage those in crisis to seek the supports available in our community. However, in addition to the services we do have, it is abundantly clear that more services need to be allocated to people in our community and those working closely with those in need. We badly need more support from higher levels of government. We can't wait any longer. We can't take any more steps backwards. The mental health and addictions crisis continues to get worse, and it continues to impact so many aspects of life in our community. We can advocate at the city level, but we cannot put city dollars into hospitals, treatment facilities, and medical schools. That funding needs to come from the Ontario government. It says so in the Constitution. So I will continue and council will continue to aggressively lobby for Sault Ste. Marie to get what it needs and what our community members deserve, including the desperately needed return of the Concurrent Disorders Day Treatment Program. We will have a full discussion on the motion on tonight's agenda at the very outset of the meeting. We just need to deal with a few procedural matters before we do. So I will turn it over to the clerk to get us through those so we can begin discussing this more in depth.
Under agenda item 2, I have a motion by councillors Bruni and Caputo, resolved that the minutes of special meeting of City Council held September 25, 2023 and regular council meeting of October 10, 2023 be approved.
All in favor? That carries.
Under declarations of pecuniary interest, Mayor Shoemaker has declared with respect to the property expropriation plan for 350 Fifth Line East as the city is a client of the law firm on this issue. Also with respect to the rental housing incentive program at 360 Northern Avenue as the applicant is a client of the law firm on this issue.
Any other declarations of pecuniary interest, council? Okay, seeing none.
Under agenda item 5, I have a motion by councillors Bruni and Zagordo, resolved that the agenda for October 30, 2023 and City Council meeting and addendum number 1 as presented be approved.
All in favor? That we will take the council agenda out of order today because we've got Mr. Sweeney and and Dan Jennings here as well to speak on item 9.1. So while we don't typically permit delegations on council motions, we have made an exception for the families of who have lost loved ones in this in the recent tragedies, not just in Sault Ste. Marie, but across Ontario. So that brings us to motion 9.1, Madam Clerk.
I have a motion by Councillors Caputo and Vezo-Allen, whereas the jury that heard the Carol Culleton, Anastasia Kuzik, and Natalie Warmerdam inquest, Renfrew County inquest, issued 86 recommendations to prevent future deaths and delivered those recommendations to the province of Ontario on intimate partner violence. And whereas recommendation number 1 of the inquest is for the province of Ontario to formally declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. And whereas every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. And whereas this past year in Ontario, 52 women, or 1 every week, were victims of femicide. And whereas gender and sexually diverse Indigenous individuals are particularly at risk, being 5 times more likely than non-Indigenous gender and sexually diverse individuals to experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And whereas in the city of Sault Ste. Marie in 2022, there were 1,351 intimate partner violence calls for service made to Sault Ste. Marie Police Service. And whereas according to Statistics Canada, 80% of intimate partner violence goes unreported. And whereas violence against women costs the national justice system, healthcare systems, social service agencies, and municipalities nearly $10 billion per year. And municipalities are on the front lines in addressing gender-based violence. And whereas over 60 municipalities and regions across Ontario have declared a gender-based violence and or intimate partner violence epidemic. And whereas on August 2023, Ontario big city mayors and regional chairs of Ontario passed a motion declaring intimate partner violence and gender-based violence an epidemic, calling on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all municipalities and regions in Ontario and Canada to do the same, and called for changes to the criminal code. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie City Council recognizes that issues of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence are matters of local importance, including public health, EMS, community services, and community safety. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council of the City of Sault Ste. Marie declare an epidemic in intimate partner violence and gender-based violence in accordance with recommendation number 1 of the Renfrew County inquest. That the city requests the Police Service Board to integrate intimate partner violence into the police services, community safety and well-being plan in accordance with recommendation number 10 of the Renfrew County inquest. That Mayor Shoemaker be requested to write a letter to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, requesting that the province of Ontario reconsider their previous decision and declare intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as an epidemic, and act on all of 86 recommendations from the Renfrew County inquest by setting up a provincial implementation committee to oversee comprehensive consideration of all of the recommendations. That a copy of this motion be sent to the Honourable Arif Farani, Minister of Justice, the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Charmaine A. Williams, Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunity, the Honourable Parm Gill, Minister of Red Tape Reduction, Sault Ste. Marie MP Terry Sheehan, Sault Ste. Marie MPP Ross Romano, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the Algoma District Municipal Association, mayors and regional chairs of Ontario, and Ontario's big city mayors.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Clerk. As I mentioned at the outset, we don't typically allow delegations on council motions. However, the request came in from Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Jennings over the weekend that they be allowed to speak to this, and I think it is appropriate to have them speak this evening to the community. And so I'd ask Mr. Sweeney if he could come to the mic at the center of the podium, and we'll begin with you. And please accept, as I had mentioned, on behalf of the entire community, all of our community's collective condolences to you and your family.
Thank you very much. I'd first of all like to start with introducing. for 45 plus years. God bless her for putting up with me. My son, Brian Jr., he's always been a focused and down-to-earth guy, and he's always been a major achiever. Always been there to guide his sister along and take care of her every time he could. The one thing I didn't say the other night was my daughter Angie was born, my honeymoon child. She was born exactly 9 months after we got married. We spent our time in Niagara Falls. Beautiful. She was made out of pure love. And believe it or not, she was pure love. This city will never be the same for the person she was, because she was never afraid to help anybody. Even if they were strangers, she'd help them. So going on with that from there is the end of my family scenario. This IPV scenario we're dealing with is definitely an epidemic in my eyes. It's been going on and on and on, and no one seems to be paying real attention to it. So from what I see, that you would have to be both blind and totally uneducated to not realize this is what it is. And it doesn't matter, you were right, because it happens everywhere, every nationality, to the newcomers, to the natives, everyone suffers with this. But not enough is being done instantaneously. Everything is pushed down the road so that maybe sooner or later we can get to it. Well, we don't have time for that anymore, because we've got to get right on the ball as soon as things happen. Things have to be instantaneous. There's got to be a new way for the police to handle this type of scenario so this never happens again, because the pain is so overwhelming. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. So I recommend to all the cities and communities across Ontario to declare this for what it is. And if they do that, then Mr. Ford has no choice but to agree with all the intelligent people within this community. We got to remember that they're supposed to be working for us, not us begging for them to possibly do something that we want to happen. No, this is going to be an order. This is what the people would want, because it's going to save so many lives. And for the plans that me and my girls have here, to just be listened to about it and take some of the information, I'm sure we can get a lot of guns off the street. We can save a lot of wasted time with police officers, because if we step down on these people that are breaking the law, and they are lawbreakers, then we won't have to waste time with them again. But once they are put into the system, then they've got to be forced to take treatment. Not none of this, well, here, we'll let you go. And, this is not a catch and release fishing tournament where you take the fish off the hook and you put it in the water and everything is fine, because that's not what happens in this scenario. And it's very painful to me. It's just senseless death and suffering for everybody involved. I just believe that the only way these people with mental issues, they've got to be assessed and evaluated before they're put back out into the public to danger everybody, including themselves. And this is a perfect example of it. So with that, I would like to ask Renee to come up. She's prepared a small that I'd like her to read. And then after that, possibly.
Good evening, Mayor Shoemaker and council members. My name is Renee Boxall, and I had the pleasure of calling Angie one of my best friends. I could read you a novel about the type of person that Angie was, but instead I will summarize her in a few words. Angie was the best damn mom, the most loving daughter and sister. She was the type of friend that every girl deserves. She was authentic, genuine, and kind. And I was blessed to have her by my side for the last 20 years through motherhood, marriage, and everything in between. I will channel her strength to get me through the coming days, weeks, and months as we try to make sense of any of this. What I want to say is a few words about intimate partner violence. As you are aware, as of September, 46 people in Ontario have died because of intimate partner violence. A record-breaking 52 people in 2022, and with IPV on the rise, it is looking like we're going to break that record again in 2023. 63 Ontario communities have declared IPV an epidemic. My question is, why hasn't all of Ontario and Canada? We are averaging more than one femicide a week in Ontario, and that sounds like an epidemic to me. Instead, the Ford government has dismantled the roundtable of violence against women. At the Intimate House in Hamilton, they had to turn away 5,715 women desperately needing a safe space between 2019 and 2022. And that number doesn't include the children who are also experiencing that violence. Every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. That is an unacceptable number because even one life lost is one too many. What we're trying to understand is, how does a man with a history of intimate partner violence, assaulting a police officer, and substance abuse lawfully be allowed to own a firearm? Furthermore, when a call is received by local authorities of a violent act against a woman, why isn't more serious action taken? Things like a mandatory 48-hour hold, ensuring they have no access to any kind of weapons, and after the hold, mandatory check-ins every 24 hours. Something needs to change because we as a community have experienced the horrifying results of nothing being done, and it has forever changed the people of Sault Ste. Marie. Our only hope as family and friends who are painfully grieving the loss of our beloved Angie and 3 innocent souls is that this brings about the change that this province and country desperately needs regarding intimate partner violence. Thank you.
There's not really a whole lot more I have to say other than, people, we have to wake up. And remember, the government is supposed to work for us. And if we push forward for this and say, this is what we want to protect our innocent people, our future people, the children are our future. And now we're losing our children. It's no longer acceptable. This has to happen, and it has to happen now. And I mean, just like an eagle flies through the sky. And that's how I feel about it. And if there's anyone that disagrees with it, well, then somebody should take them out in the backyard and show them what it's all about. I'd like to thank you all for everything, hearing what we had to say. And I just hope this brings about some kind of change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for giving me an opportunity to speak about the loss of my daughter, Caitlin. Caitlin was my millennium baby, born in the year 2000. She was supposed to be 23 in the year 2023. She didn't make it to that point. She was found dead in her home on July 5th. Just want to tell you a little bit of background about it and then why I didn't come forward until this point. I'm originally from the Sioux, moved away and got married. I lived in London. That's where I was born. Marriage broke up and I moved back home. And due to the marriage breakup, we became estranged. So I missed many of her formative teen years. When I came back here, that's the only thing that was bothering me, that my life with my children was still unresolved. And not only with the loss of my daughter, last spring, I was previously married once again, and I lost my wife to the horrid disease of cancer. And this is actually my new fiance, Michelle. But last June on Father's Day, I got the best Father's Day present any father could ask for. After years of being separated, my daughter finally reached out to me. She saw my post about my deceased wife and wanted to make things right between us. You can only imagine the joy I felt. I finally got to see her again in September when she's living in Strathroy. There was no way to know that would be the last time I saw her. And this picture of myself and Caitlin was taken at that time. We had plans for her to come here or me to go back down there. And during that time, she was living with a much older partner. She was 22, as I mentioned. He was 50. There's issues with that. But coming back into my daughter's life, I try to keep an open mind. But of course, there were red flags. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary when I was with them. They moved back to London in March of this year. Between the time of March till she died in the beginning of July, there were 7 police visits to their home for violence. Some calls were done by, we call Monster, or some calls were done by her. There was times when she was living in shelters. She didn't open up to how bad things were to me. I got text messages from her friends, even at the end of May, said, "You have to get away. This guy is going to end up killing you." And 6 weeks later, those words came true. As Brian said, this has to change. The police and laws failed my daughter. There's no reason that many calls in that short a time and things were let go. And I appreciate you making this, wanting to make intimate partner violence an epidemic. And it is. And we do have to not only get the laws changed in Ontario and the criminal code to make intimate partner violence a felony. So this has to change. And the main reason I never came forward, because the London media didn't treat me like a person, didn't treat me with the compassion and dignity. They just wanted a soundbite. They forgot the human aspect. And once I heard about the tragedy last week, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to go to the vigil. And I want to also appreciate and personally thank Kenneth Armstrong from Sue Today. I didn't expect to make a reporter cry, but I did with my story. And one thing I do want to stress is that I'm not looking for vengeance. I'm looking for justice. And that's what Caitlin deserved. And to conclude, I also have, I'm a proud grandfather of 3 kids, not Caitlin's, but from my previous marriage, her daughter. They're my world. And I don't want any other child be a little bit younger than the youngest victim from last week, but nothing compare anyone with the words of not even a 5-year-old saying, "Why did a bad man kill your daughter? What can you say?" And Brian said it so perfectly at the vigil. Hugs are the perfect medicine. Hugs and love. I couldn't answer that question to my grandson, but that hug I gave him and he gave me back, that was nothing but pure love. And that's what we need going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Council, the motion, excuse me, has been read, and Councillor Caputo is the mover of it. So, Councillor Caputo, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take a moment to thank the Sweeneys and Jennings and their families to the Sweeneys. It is a true testament of the strength of Angie to see you sitting here today in a time when most people would not be able to leave their homes. So For that, I thank you. And please accept my condolences on this horrific tragedy. The motion on the floor this evening is for this council to declare an epidemic on intimate partner violence in Sault Ste. Marie. But my real call is to our Premier, Doug Ford. I ask us to join the 63 municipalities who have already declared intimate partner violence an epidemic. And I ask Premier Ford to recognize that our community is shattered. I want to be very clear. The horrific events that led to the femicide of Angie Sweeney and the murder of 3 children we lost are not isolated incidents. 1,351. That is the number of intimate partner violence calls for service placed to Sault Ste. Marie Police Services in 2022. Statistics Canada will tell us that 80% of these crimes go unreported. That means that there were very likely approximately 6,755 incidents of intimate partner violence in Sault Ste. Marie in 2022. So I ask everyone in this room and everyone listening, do not let folks tell you that what happened to Angie and to those children was an isolated incident. The Ontario government under Premier Ford has stated that they do not want to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic because they say the definition of epidemic relates to disease. Yet the World Health Organization says violence against women, particularly intimate partner violence and sexual abuse, is a major public health concern. And it's a violation of women's human rights. So I ask Premier Ford to reconsider the stance this government has taken. Angie Sweeney deserved better. Those 3 innocent children deserved better. Women in this province deserve better. Further than what is present in this motion, I would ask my council colleagues, everyone present in this gallery, and everyone watching to do the uncomfortable work. Call out the societal atrocities against women, girls, and gender diverse people in your everyday life. Make the little things big. Stop making how beautiful a little girl is the default compliment. Start telling her how strong and how smart she is. Stop telling little boys to stifle their emotions. Instead, celebrate them. Hug your sons. Cry with them. Give them the space to allow their emotions to flourish. We do not need a society where we are protected by men. We need a society where we do not require protection from men. Premier Ford and Council, label intimate partner violence what it is, an epidemic. I look forward to continuing this work and making the changes necessary to affect this epidemic. I invite all of you to join me. Say their names, believe their stories, take action to end their suffering, and to prevent our daughters and granddaughters from enduring it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Bezo-Allen.
Thank you. And as well, Brian and the Sweeney family, my condolences. I cannot imagine. And Dan, I've known you for many years. Dan has served our community previously on the accessibility committee, and I've gotten to know him. So I applaud you for your bravery and your candor and your honesty. And I miss you at the accessibility committee. So my condolences as well. I'm a data person, and that's something I think we all look at in all of our committees and boards. We're always constantly looking at data. I think we get lost in the minutia of data. And I was thinking about my time on the Police Services Board from 2019 to spring 2023. And we never focused on that data. We didn't focus on the numbers. We looked at a lot of other things such as break-ins and crimes of violence. So I started diving into the data because that's what I do. And just the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service stats, as we know, in 2022, it was 1,351. 2019, 1,632. 2020, 1,673. 2021, 1,461. I want to thank Robin Kerr from Victim Services Algoma. She gave me some data as well, did a little more diving. 2021 to 2022, 226 calls, 240 assisted. 2022 to 2023, 241 calls, 278 assisted. Right now, currently from April 1 to September 30th, 127 calls, 159 assisted. That doesn't even include women in crisis. Women in crisis from 2022 to 2023 had 3,275 calls. They had 498 walk-ins, and they were 98% at capacity. So my call out is to all of us that sit on boards and committees and make decisions and steer advocacy. I was on that board. Now we have Sunny Spina and Councillor Bruni, and Matt, you were with me on that board. And there was never that point of discussion of IPV. And I take responsibility for that. We all should take responsibility for that as people that sit on boards and committees and help steer decisions and raise issues. Because it's not what's in the data, it's what's not in the data. The data just gives us a snapshot. It doesn't give us the true picture of the realities of who we're missing. When I was reading through the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, on page 9, we talk about acute elevated risk, and there's more data and percentages. Within the top risk factors, mental health is at 14.2%, housing 12.15%, criminal involvement 11.2%, as the same with drug use, physical violence 8.4%, sexual violence 3.74%. So again, we take a look at the data, but we don't create a reaction to it or a subcommittee to it, or who's going to go when we're in front of delegations and really push this. So what I want to see is not what happens tonight, what are we going to do tomorrow? And I will say that you have me, and I will advocate for this because it's not just violence against women, it's violence against all of us. As a lot of you know, I do have an autistic son, and I'm also president of Autism Ontario. And we had such a horrible incident in Peel where a young autistic man was tasered, and now Peel police have changed. So violence is out there in so many different ways, but we're not looking at it accurately. And I urge all of my council colleagues here, police services boards here and all throughout Ontario to really not get lost in the data, but to understand what it is we really need to be doing and creating sound action items. And Renfrew County, 86 recommendations. 3 women were killed in July of 2015. And there are 86 recommendations that still have yet to become reality. I think all of us need to understand that action needs to happen. And we are fortunate as elected officials to have the opportunity to make sure that what happened here in Sault Ste. Marie and other places, such as Renfrew County, does not happen again. I'm very proud to support this motion. And we also just got a letter from Hilton Beach, and they're putting forth the same motion on their November 8th. So thank you to our neighbors in Hilton Beach. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Vesuel. Councillor Hollingsworth, did you wish to make any comments?
Thank you. My colleagues have summarized it very well, but I just want to also say I'm very sorry. And I tried to reach out to the family earlier. But I also want to just quickly say that physical is happening, but let us not forget that there's mental violence happening to many people. It's as equally important to know that if you're being a victim of mental violence, you have to stand up. And as my colleagues have just said, Sometimes it's difficult to explain that, but I really hope that police and all services out there that answer calls or come to the door will take the person's word for word for word. And unfortunately, mental violence is on the up. So again, I am very sorry. I don't want to repeat all the great advice and information my colleagues just gave, but as a family, as a community, watch out for each other, look for signs. And sometimes where you're in a situation, the other person may not be able to leave. Somehow find a way to pull them away from that situation. God bless you, and I'm very sorry. And last point, I challenge my staff here at City Hall to use our website as a source to put information on where you can get help. Yes, we have DSAB and they do a wonderful job, but we also have a responsibility to put information on our website. I challenge staff to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Dufour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to begin my comments by thanking the Jennings and the Sweeney family for taking the time to share with us your awful reality right now and for impressing upon us the dire need for action, maybe more especially from other levels of government, but from this level of government as well, to acknowledge the problem and hopefully to move forward in other capacities to actually address some of the local needs and the issues that we see here in Sault Ste. Marie. So I wanted to also thank my council colleagues, Councillor Caputo, Councillor Vezo-Allen, for bringing this motion to us. I think it's a very good strategic first step in order to raise the awareness with the province and join other municipalities in AMO in calling on further action. I think that there's further steps that we can take here locally. I think that it's incumbent on us, especially as I'm researching more about women in crisis and some of the data that we see in front of us here. They list themselves at 98% capacity this year. At last year, they were over capacity. That's a very direct resource and service in Sault Ste. Marie that this council, our Housing Corp and our Social Services Board can take further direct action to help change. I know that I've spoken with the mayor on this and hopefully this will continue, but if the province were to look at these issues that we're seeing, the numbers at Women in Crisis, and provide us with either rent supplements or capital support, I feel that with a very high degree of confidence that our Housing Corp would be able to help build and introduce new units to help ensure that that vacancy rate is driven lower and that women and families are getting the help that they need. So I just wanted to share that as one of our other hopefully future action items to really change in a concrete and tactile way the availability of services in Sault Ste. Marie. So thank you again very much for being here today, and my sincerest condolences on your loss. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Folks, the headline in our area 5 hours ago, less than 5 hours ago, victim shot during domestic dispute in Pancake Bay. It's less than 5 hours ago today. Thankfully, that person survived. But quite frankly, I think as a society, we need to stop being shocked by this. This is not new information. We've known about this for a long time. As Mr. Sweeney has said to us, we need to demand change and we need to demand action. We need to demand action from our federal government to change laws, to put laws in place that can help hold offenders accountable and help keep our streets safe. It's not enough for us to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that we're shocked every time we hear one of these things, because we're not, truly, because we've heard it before and we know it's a problem. And the problem is, now that we know it's a problem and we've all acknowledged that we know it's a problem, now we need action. And to an end, we need to know by who and by when. And I think it's incumbent upon us to take that action. And this motion here today is a great first step in taking that action. So I thank my colleagues for bringing it forward. And I thank everyone here for supporting it. And Mr. Sweeney, I I will say that today I was shocked by your presentation to council in a good way. I fully expected you to come here today and share your horrific reality right now. And what I heard from you is a true community leader who was incredibly selfless in this moment and trying to tell us how we can make our community better. And you stood in front of all of us and did not once worry about yourself. You worried about our community and what our leaders could do to make things better, and what you were asking of us to make things better for people here in our community. And I don't think I've been struck that hard by a reality in a long time. No, you interrupt me all you want, sir. So I want to thank you for having our community's best interests first and putting it first. And the passion with which you speak is unparalleled. And thank you for that. And now it's, I don't believe that you need a voice, but you have 11 of them here that I know are with you, and you have roughly 77,000 more. So all I can do is say thank you and let you know that you have my support, the support of my colleagues, and that is unwavering. And we will find out by who and by when to make those changes for you and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Any other councillors? I will note just procedurally that while the motion is moved by Councillor Caputo and seconded by Councillor Vezo-Allen, there was agreement that it would be collectively moved in second by Councillor Caputo, Councillor Vezo-Allen, and Councillor Hollingsworth as the three women representatives on council, as this is a issue that has a far greater impact with women in our community than it does with men, or far greater instances of occurrence in our community and across Canada on women than it does on men. So thank you to all three of you for bringing this motion forward. Madam Clerk, the motion's been read. We can have a vote on it. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Council, that is clearly a difficult and gut-wrenching discussion that we've had to have today, and it is somewhat awkward to move from that directly into council business, but we do, for better or worse, have a council agenda before us, which we will get into. And I believe the next matter is the art gallery. And so I will invite Mr. Lepore and Ms. and Jasmina and former Councillor Myers, if they wish to join us at the microphone to discuss this matter. Welcome to council, Mr. Lepore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge with deep remorse and regret the tragic events of last week. Unfortunately, our presentation was scheduled and we have consultants that arrived from out of town. Otherwise, we would have certainly postponed this presentation. I do thank council for your indulgence. For those of you that may not know me, I believe most of you do. I'm Mark Lepore. I'm the president of the board of directors of the Art Gallery of Algoma. We've presented before council on several occasions, and tonight's presentation is a bit of a culmination of the work that we've done over the last approximately 1 year. With me, I have members from our board of directors. We have our executive director, Yasmina Jovanovic. We also have the working chair of our building committee, Susan Myers, we have some former members of the board and members of the building committee. And we also have Peggy Theodore, principal of Diamond Schmidt Architects, our lead consultant in the matter. Over the last 12 months or so, the last year, we've engaged in a very important project for the long-term sustainability, viability, and success of the Art Gallery of Algoma. We've been proud members of this community for the last nearly 50 years, and we'd like to really ensure that the community and the Art Gallery of Algoma can continue in its journey together for the next 50 or so odd years or longer. As council knows, our building, and as we'll see in the presentation, is suffering. Our programming is suffering, and despite it all, our staff has done a wonderful job at maintaining its presence in the community and maintaining our very important collection, and in being a pillar of our community, and we'd like to continue that. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Peggy Theodore of Diamond Schmidt Architects, and she will continue the formal part of our presentation this evening. Thank you.
Council, Ms. Theodore.
Thank you. Thank you for including us this evening. I'm honored to be here to be speaking to all of you about this project. Understand that it is difficult to kind of continue after everything that we've heard. I would just add that I'm new to this community, and I'm very happy to have been welcomed with open arms by the board and some that I've met over the course of this project. And maybe we can just move the slides forward. We have a short agenda, which all of you will have seen, so I'll just keep moving. We will take some questions if there are any at the end. So as I was introduced, I'm with Diamond Schmidt Architects. We are fortunate to be working on this project with the AGA, and I am only one of many consultants that are involved in this project. Next, please. As many of you know, the vision and the mission of the AGA is very succinct as it's on the slides, and the importance of the AGA as a building block for a healthy community. I would add that we have also been struck by the passion that a lot of the building committee members and the board members have in what they think is also important and why it is important. And we've included the words of Susan Myers on the screen. As per the gallery is a very important place, and it is all about the community level effect of art and encompassing three aspects: economic, cultural, and social. Art builds connections between people. Art encourages interaction. Art challenges perceptions, and each of these components is vital to creating a healthy community. After many years of assessments, studies and recommendations, which is what Mark was speaking about, the AGA carried out a very comprehensive feasibility study, which included research, consultations, planning, and a comprehensive feasibility study, hundreds of pages anyone who's interested in reading it. And it does include all the research that we've undertaken and all the analysis. And it is about a project to rebuild the AGA facility, and how can it be viably supported so that it becomes a vibrant contemporary art gallery for the city of Sault Ste. Marie and beyond. As you can see from the slide, that kind of just expresses the approach that our team took. And it was a lengthy process. It was about 8 months for us to get to a report. So through the next few slides, we will share with you some of the kind of key things that kind of came out of that and steps. The work to produce this study included community and stakeholder consultations, assessment of the existing site and the existing building, comparative research with other institutions, especially in Ontario, user group consultations. We put together a functional program, which I will talk a little bit more about. We tested illustratively what the site can take, and we did a preliminary building concept site on the site and a cost estimate. Along with that, there was a development of a business model, and most importantly, their Indigenous consultation was carried out in parallel with all the other work, and the intent is to bring that Indigenous perspective to the overall reconceptualization of the gallery, not just when you're in schematic design, but really at the beginning when you're just starting to think about it and putting together that business plan. Next, please. Many of you know this view, though now it's been changed with a beautiful mural that was just unveiled a couple of weeks ago. But quickly, many of you who have visited know that there's fantastic programming going on and beautiful shows that are always on display. However, the building that was open in 1980 is now quite deteriorated. From the outside, you might not see that. I think Jasmina and her staff take very good care of it. But what we did through our consultations and our reviews, along with our mechanical engineers, electrical, structural, and other consultants, which I'll get into, we did look at the state of the building as it is now, and that it is in a state of deterioration. Operations and growth have exceeded its capacity, and the original design no longer meets current functional and technical standards of a gallery. Next, please. If I can just continue with the impacts that we found, that the permanent collection, and it's quite extensive, there's over 5,000 pieces at the gallery, is at the risk of irreversible damage. There is a constant risk of losing the Category A status, which many of you know means that it allows the gallery to bring in collections from other institutions or to loan out or to take on loans. So as a result, a lot of this they can't develop anymore nor evolve the building as it is now. And so it was identified early on that an upgrade is required and an expansion of the gallery to facilitate both present and future growth. Next, please. So expansion versus new build. I think this is the big question as to, can you expand on what's there? Do you need to build new? What's holding the gallery back? This slide here just represents kind of critical decision-making that needs to be made on the expansion versus the new build. In our own consultations, but also our visual inspections and reviews, we did find that the mechanical systems are underperforming. They're at the end of service life. And as a result, there's deterioration of the actual envelope. A hydrological engineer was hired from Sault Ste. Marie to actually investigate the significant stormwater infiltration that's happening. So as a result, one of the conclusions is that it's so extensive that a complete demolition would be required, because you can't really save a lot of what's there which is the exterior fabric inclusive of the slab. On the other side, we also looked at the existing structure and the soil capacity. And what does that mean? That means, can you use the existing structure to build more? And can the current foundations allow you to build more? And a geotechnical consultant was hired also from this here who conducted those investigations, and also concluded that the current foundations do not allow for expanding upwards. And the structure, as everybody knows, there's, a lot of angles, and even that does not allow us to kind of easily go up to a 2-story building. Next, please. So as part of what we did was, the investigations, we also took on looking at what are the current needs in order to get to what is called a space analysis or functional program. And so what was determined after a lot of consultation was there is requirement for increased galleries. One of the galleries right now is actually being used to house a lot of the collection, because back of house, as it's called, it doesn't have the right environment. The education and art classes are booming. It's very, very a happy place where a lot of children come through, and that needs to continue. People are happy to support that. And so there is a huge demand for educational programming, but very little space for that. And how do we care for the collections? And that, as we've said already, there isn't a good place for that. And as a result, there is a risk of losing that category A, as it's called, but also in order to maintain that category A, you need to have those right places to maintain your collections. Thank you. So this is a proposed functional program. And essentially, it's not a plan per se. It's just an idea of a bubble diagram which expresses the spaces, the size of spaces, and relationships or functional relationships that are desired. So this just shows you what is desired from the many consultations that we had: larger gallery spaces, more places for education, and an opportunity to have more events. And so this amounts to approximately 30,000 square feet. Next, please. We also conducted a site analysis, and we met with some members of the Department of Planning and Parks. The gallery is situated in Clargie Park. It has a very prominent location in the park. And so we looked at maintaining the connectivity to the city and to the land and to the water. And we looked at very preliminary what it meant to stay, building the gallery where it is. That would mean demolishing the current one, potentially moving the new gallery while maintaining the existing until the new is built. And thirdly, it might be important for the gallery as they move forward to look at a potential other site. But we would recommend that more consultation happens with the city to talk about where is the right location for this. I think if we can just move on. Sorry, thank you. Through our Indigenous consultant, Greg Hill, he did a lot of consultations. He isn't from the Sioux area, and as a result, he came here with fresh eyes and was willing to listen, and met and interviewed many people in the area, including Indigenous artists and other Indigenous residents who have a stake in the gallery and the importance of the gallery to and the collection that the gallery has. And even for Greg, he kind of came to the conclusion that the location of the gallery, the importance of it to the water, and is still something that should be considered as the planning continues, and that we shouldn't just kind of push that away. And so that's another recommendation, is that to really think about and recognize the fact that the gallery and where it is located now, even if it's an original concept, was all about its relationship to the water. Next, please. So some of you have seen this and we just want to just reiterate that this is early days. This is just about what the gallery might look like, but what the spirit of the gallery might be, which is transparency. You know, can you see in, can you see out? A relationship to the water, as we've said, but an opportunity to be able to see from the city as you're walking through the park and into the gallery and out beyond onto the river. Opportunity for a garden to be to house sculptures and or an Indigenous garden for Indigenous art. It is actually quite large. So that is approximately 30,000 square feet on 2 levels. So that's another aspect of what you're seeing in front of you is what 30,000 square feet represents in a 2-story volume. So this is not to say that this is the final, this is just the beginning. And we have only just started our work on this project. Next, please. There are partnerships that have already that are currently underway that the AGA has already made and wants to continue with. We've made a list, including strengthening partnerships with the Roberta Bondar Foundation and Algoma University and SKG. And new partnerships and how to develop new partnerships that allow the AGA to make, to play an important role, not only in the city of Sault Ste. Marie, in the region and province and nationally. Next, please. So the business core findings, 2 slides on this. We do have there was a business case consultant on this. And one of the important things that she's recommending is that this business case, which is important to understand what are the operational needs for the gallery right now, which many of you know, the AGA is understaffed, but if they are to grow into a larger facility, a lot of that, the staffing demands and those program demands need to start development early on. So staffing is very important to start thinking about what that looks like. You have a very strong membership base. There's a lot of people who love coming to the gallery, and her interviews were really great interviews. She shared that many people want the gallery to stay here in Sault Ste. Marie, even stay where it's at, and that there are significant opportunities for the gallery to grow within its public programming, but also its educational programming, and the collections between some of the Roberta Bondar collections that they have now, the Group of 7 that everyone knows about, and a significant Indigenous collection. They are already out there and people know of the AGA beyond the Sioux. Next, please. So final slide on my part, and then I will pass it over to Mark, is as we noted, the AGA is understaffed compared to other galleries. Investment in staff is important now and not to wait until later. Based on the 2022 dollars, there is the projected operating budget for the year, for 1 year, is over $1 million. So this will require a significant revenue. And there's, the different revenue categories that are required to make this happen. But in bold letters, as you can see, that capital building is a priority and should start as soon as possible. Next, please. So with that, I will pass it back to Mark to talk about next steps and opportunities.
Thank you, Peggy. Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you can tell, feasibility study is really a culmination of work that's been undertaken over the last several months. Work that's been done in a purposeful fashion and with a view to the future. However, it is only the sort of foundation step in terms of what we would like to see the Art Gallery of Algoma being in the future. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk briefly about some next steps and opportunities. And certainly, as you can see from the slide, Growth as a tourism destination through new exhibitions and programming, developing art-based tourism products is but one opportunity. It certainly is important. It's helpful to our tourism industry locally. It's helpful to increase that product offering. But we're an art gallery, and we're located in this St. Marie. And this St. Marie is part of us. We're part of the city. We want to increase access by children and youth for school and extracurricular programs. We currently offer a significant number. However, our capacity is limited, and a new building would certainly allow us to increase that offering and that ability for children and youth to participate and be immersed in the arts. In addition, increasing partnerships and collaborations with the fine arts program at Algoma University is seen to be as a potential very important opportunity, both to the Art Gallery of Algoma and also to the fine arts program at our university. Increasing art education programs, not only for youth, but for young adults, seniors, in any ages, with the proper space, studio space, and otherwise, we would be able to have those product offerings to all age groups. Importantly, the Art Gallery of Algoma and its new building can be seen and will support the city's downtown revitalization plan. I was downtown a few weeks ago near the opening of the new plaza, the market, and I must say I was shocked at what I was seeing, which was a good thing. I was seeing people downtown, and I was starting to see how the revitalization of the downtown can really work towards our sense of community, and the Art Gallery of Algoma would certainly play a big role in that. AGA wants to build upon its reputation for supporting Indigenous creative expression through exhibitions, programs, and the growth of our Indigenous art collection. We take great pride in what we're currently doing in that respect. However, the space that we have is limited. Our role as being a role that also does the work of truth reconciliation with our Indigenous community, and growth of the Indigenous art collection is an important aspect of that. The next point in the slide talks about preserving, acquiring, displaying the collection of Dr. Roberta Bondar as her legacy. Many of you may know that Dr. Bondar is honorary chair of our building committee, and is quite supportive of the Art Gallery of Algoma. As a matter of fact, she had an outstanding exhibition that's currently still on display over the last few months. And in the words of Dr. Bondar, creativity, self-awareness, and self-expression within the safety net of community are essential to development of diversity in thinking, inclusion, and good mental health. We are inspired by those whose works we see that give us new lines of thought and add another entrance to the world close by and farther away. The AGA has an opportunity to provide permanent exhibition space also for exhibitions by local artists, increase collaboration with art galleries throughout Canada. Many of council may be aware that we do collaborate with other art galleries. However, the state of our building is a challenge in that respect. We want to start in detail as we go forward a functional program for the new art gallery. As I mentioned, this is a foundational step. We have a lot of work left to do. Along with the detailed functional program, we would like to commence with an early schematic design, building design, so that we can really take a good look at how the new building would come to shape. And ultimately, one of our next immediate steps is setting up a capital campaign for the new building. In closing, once again, I would like to thank council for your time this evening. Thank you for your support that's been ongoing for several years of the Art Gallery of Algoma, and we're excited in moving forward. If there are any questions, Mr. Mayor, we'd be happy to address those.
Thank you, Mr. Lepore. Any questions from council? Councillor Scott, Councillor Bezuel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to start out, great presentation. Love to see it. I just had a question. I know that at one point last term, the art gallery had approached us for some sort of improvements for the storage because there were some animation cells that needed to be stored in a certain way. Does this take that into account? Is the intention? I see that there is a storage space in the overhead view, but I was just wondering if it would have the requirements. I believe there were some pretty strict requirements for those cells. So
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, the animation cells have been a real issue. And ultimately, we've presented to council in the past on that issue. We are not looking to make the cells a long-term part of our collection. They have been, we need to deal with them as best we can. The storage space, of course, that's being proposed is sort of storage at museological standards, storage that can preserve all of our collection. I just don't think the animation cells are something that is part of our mission, but certainly, in terms of our collection storage issues, what's being proposed is certainly going to address that.
Okay.
Not only now, but for years to come.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, I just remember that was one of the particular items. So thank you for answering that. Other than that, great presentation. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Bezuel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going through some of the slides, and under current partnerships, I'm wondering why your neighbors in the cultural corridor aren't listed, such as the Bush Plain Museum, Atomica, the Ermitager Old Stone House, the library, the museum, the DTA, and the Summer Moon Festival. So I know that there used to be a lot of cross programming, and we did do a lot of work in kind of creating that cultural corridor. So if you could kindly explain that.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Reza Allen, that relationship is still there and the partnerships are still there. And we did not list all the partnerships in this slide that we actually have. So we still have programming that is shared with all the organizations in culture, and that's kind of a given. So we participate in various events together. We participate in Culture Days every September. We share the March break programming together. We share special events together. So it's not that that partnership doesn't exist. It does, it will continue. So it's kind of a baseline, it's a given. So it's not listed here for that reason, I guess we assume maybe that people would know.
That's important because not everyone here is aware. The other piece that I think would be important to add in this strengthening partnerships would obviously be Heritage Canada and strengthening partnerships with Heritage Canada. Heritage Canada has had, large pockets in the past in our community, and I think that would be important to add as well. You didn't list the Ontario Arts Council, and I think that would be also a very important strengthening partnership piece. And in terms of if you're working on growing your Indigenous partnerships, the McConnell Foundation out of Montreal does a lot of funding in terms of reconciliation, and they've always had a soft spot for the arts. So what I would like to see is more, you're saying like you need this, but we're not seeing the why. So, from a presentation perspective, even a snippet from the business plan, where you're looking at growing at revenues, where revenues perhaps are waning, or where there's terms for opportunity or improvement. A good snapshot slide of that would be like we don't know from this presentation, like, are your revenues down? Are they up? Are they stable? Has membership maintained its level? Like, are you getting more families, young families in? What is your demographic? Who's coming? Who's not coming? Who are you missing? I used to be at the gallery every week when my kids were little, doing classes, but I'm not there every week anymore because I don't have little kids anymore. So you've sort of lost me as a customer. So what can you do to get that 50 plus crowd going again? I will go to special events at times. So that would be really important to see, because you're proposing this amazing facility, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. But like, what is the rationale behind it? Where we do know that you don't have storage space and things like that, and that keeps coming up, and that's certainly understandable. But I think I'm just speaking on behalf of myself. To have a presentation that has a little more finite detail, and especially the business planning piece, I think would be really important for us to see.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor West-Allen, your first point about Heritage Canada. Well, Heritage Canada funded most of this study. So we do have an ongoing partnership. We are currently working on another project funded entirely by Heritage Canada. The mural on the wall of the art gallery was funded by the Ontario Arts Council. So those pieces are again sort of given in our field, that those funders are there all the time, and we approach as we have a project that meets their requirements. There is also Trillium Foundation that we had a big funding grant from them for a different project. So we are exploring all the grants that are out there for our field. In terms of programming, we are not offering just the programming for kids. We offered consequently, like for 3 weeks, we offered 3 public talks, which are not for kids, and they were very well attended. The talks by Honorable Patricia Bovey, who worked in this field for her entire life and was a senator, who recently retired. She was followed by Dr. Roberta Bonder. That talk was sold out. And after that was a talk by a tourism expert who was presenting, Rob Stimson, who was presenting in the footsteps of the Group of 7. Again, very well attended talk. As per one of the slides, I can't remember which slide, it does specify that in the new facility, with the new spaces, we would be able to offer more programming for all age groups. And we cannot do that easily right now. So if we have 2 or 3 school tours per day, we do not have the capacity to have an art class in the evening for adults. We just cannot do it with the current staff and in the current space. And that's very pragmatic answer to this. So we do whatever we can. We have public openings, and I would like to invite you all on November 15th at 7 p.m. to come to the opening of the members exhibition. And the exhibition title is Dreams and Desires. So we have, I think, close to 90 entries from local artists. So it's very popular and always well received. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I think just more information in the presentation would have been helpful in relaying the message. So if we know that if you do 2 or 3 school tours a day, then you just don't have the capacity to do an evening class. And that's important information that would be really useful on your presentation, because you know that, but we don't know that. So I think more of that kind of operational need is important for us to understand the need for expanded space, other than talking about the collection and needing storage for the collection, because we do know that.
Well, the new space also does call for larger exhibition spaces. You would not believe how many proposals at any given moment in time we have for exhibitions, asking from artists, from other galleries across Canada. We can't accommodate them. We have a schedule set for 2 years, and we could set a schedule for 10 years, which I don't want to do because things change and we have to be relevant as well. So we can't just be stuck. Okay, all of these people are valid. They submitted proposals. We should put them on the schedule. We can't do that. We have to be relevant. We have to be sustainable. We have to be current. So I don't know what's going to be current in 5 years. So we schedule our exhibitions for approximately 2 years in advance. And we could schedule twice as many easily, good quality exhibitions, but we don't have where to put them. So I hope that explains it.
Yeah, I could just add,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Zoran. We do very detailed business plan, and the questions that you've asked was our understanding that tonight's presentation was to be a short one. But if we are invited back, which I hope we will be, we could take some time to just go through, as you put it earlier, the stats, because there are a lot of numbers that have been collected that do answer your specific questions, which we did not put on a slide tonight, but we can, because there is, I don't know, about 50 pages worth of material there that we could succinctly make it into 10 slides and just go through some of the questions that you've asked us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vezoel. Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation, Peggy and report. I guess my first question is, you're looking at about a 30,000 square foot building. What do you have right now?
May I respond to that, Mr. Mayor? So it's about 18,000 square feet.
And obviously, while this report that you provided, there are some deficiencies. Maybe you can explain what's the deterioration of the building, I guess. That kind of alarms me that the building is falling apart.
Yeah, answer that. Yes, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor. Yes, so I didn't go into great detail, but you're asking, so I will just take a few minutes to describe it to you. So what we had on that one slide where it says envelope, what the building envelope represents is the exterior face of that building. When you're building any kind of a high performance building, be it a laboratory building or a gallery, the temperature and humidity values are very strict. And so what's happened over the years is that there's been a lot of water infiltration within that envelope, along with the mechanical systems not functioning properly. And so the humidity and temperature values are no longer what they should be, nor can the envelope actually maintain those values. There's also water infiltration that we found out from the hydrological study, which actually is impacting the slab, which is another piece of the box, you could say, or of the envelope. So all of that together is causing deterioration of the fabric of the building. You're welcome.
So I didn't see a price tag. Do we know an approximate price tag? This 30,000 square foot? Or that come back to a later? So.
Councillor Bruin, it is too early to really provide you with any kind of reasonable number. This to be a very preliminary, exciting presentation as to our first step. Certainly, when we get to that stage, we will be before council, and we hope to be providing updates on a very periodic and regular basis.
And I guess the final question is, when do you want to start the project? And you're going to say as soon as possible, but realistically.
Well, I was going to say yesterday.
Yes, okay.
We've already started, Councillor Bruni, in terms of our feasibility study. And so the process is underway. As sort of one of the last in the presentation, we still have work in terms of schematic design, in terms of functional planning, and obviously our capital can be part of. We just know when we'll be shovel ready, but we're certain there yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for what is a very exciting presentation. Very exciting schematics that you guys have here. I just have a couple quick questions. The first one, has to do with partnerships. We've seen here in Sault Ste. Marie over the past few years, a number of institutions that had significant needs for new community spaces for their target audience. And when they sought to build those, one of the ways that they helped to fund the construction of those community spaces was by partnering and adding housing units. So I'm thinking here of things like the Legion, things like Holy Trinity, the Anglican Church. Was there any consideration given by your group to that as a possibility with the art gallery or no? Just curious.
Mr. Mayor to Councillor. We did hear about that idea. I don't think that anyone has discounted that or any other partnership. We understand that a project in Ottawa actually has done that. Definitely a different city, not the same as Sault Ste. Marie, but I think that the AGA is open to partnerships. I don't think anyone's come forward to say, you know, we could do some housing and a gallery at the same time. But as Mark mentioned, it is early days and still have work to do with the planning department also in terms of where the building will be finally located. So there are opportunities to continue the discussions.
Well, that's great to hear. And in these early days, you know, I do think that it's really great to hear of that example in Ottawa. And I think that could be a really, you know, interesting possibility for this project here in Sault Ste. Marie, especially in such a wonderful area as our waterfront and the boardwalk. So thank you very much. My last question just had to do with, there's a recommendation here talking about how capacity building should be a priority and start as soon as possible. Is that something that council will be hearing more about in the coming budget cycle, or is this more of an internal AGA goal?
Through you, Mr. to Councillor Dufour, it is an ongoing goal. We've been before council. We're certainly going to be presenting at the next budget cycle. We're not looking to capacity build overnight. I think it involves increments, and you will be hearing from us further. But at the same time, we're not looking only to the city for capacity building. Okay, there are other avenues that we need to explore, and we will explore. But the city is certainly a big part of our success.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all your hard work that you've put into getting things this far. And thank you to Councillor Myers and quite a few other board members that I see back there for your time and passion that you guys have put into this project. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of my questions have been answered. Mr. Lepore actually answered. This presentation was meant more as a friendly update on some exciting new news that you got from a study that came back, and not really a detailed report on what your plans are yet. I expect you're coming back in the very near future with some plans, or maybe not near future, but in a few months or so with some other plans that will, I'm sure, excite and invigorate our imagination as well.
Through you, Mr. Councillor Spina, you're correct. We will be before council. We anticipate several times
Right.
next budget cycle, and as we get closer towards the next stages, planning work, we will be before council to provide more exciting news. So to that I would say stay tuned.
Good, thank you, and thanks to former Councillor Meyer. I think she's in the audience. I can't see her, but she did share some information with us earlier that Thunder Bay, I guess, undertook a very similar project, and I think they're 9 years since they've been dealing with that. So this is not something you're looking at doing overnight. I think you mentioned incrementally you're looking at building capacity over time, which I think is a very responsible approach that you're taking, and I thank you for being realistic and doing that with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Any other councillors with questions? Councillor Zagordo, Councillor Hollingsworth.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. That was very exciting. Anytime there's a new build or an attraction, I think that's something that we should definitely take a look at. Obviously, the biggest aspect is going to be the financial part of it. There's no doubt about that. So looking in current partnerships, are the partnerships that you've listed and ones you haven't listed, are all of them financially supporting, or are they partnerships under different categories of the sort?
You, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Zagordo, that list of partnerships is very high level and it is not necessarily financial only, and it's not exclusive or sort of indicating that those are the only partnerships we're looking for. We attempted in that slide, of course, to highlight partnerships, whether it be partnerships with other art galleries or other cultural institutions or some financial partners, but certainly we're not suggesting that we're going to be obtaining funding only or from necessarily any of those particular parties.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up, I'm pretty excited about the school boards in terms of their potential and the number of students that could potentially, not financially, obviously, support such a project, but the potential is there. To what degree are the school boards a partnership with the Art Gallery of Algoma?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Zagordo, I may ask Ms. Jovanovic to answer that more fully, but certainly currently the school boards are partners in the sense that we have a number of school tours that attend on a regular basis throughout the academic years. It's a really big part, but I'll let Yasmina speak to it.
Thank you. I would just like to reiterate that over many, many years, the Art Gallery is receiving annual funding from the two school boards that allows unlimited access to as many as board wants to send, is able to send. So the funding hasn't increased. Well, definitely not in my time, which is now almost coming to 13 years. And I can give you the numbers. Algoma District School Board, 6,000 per year. Catholic School Board, 4,000. So we get $10,000 per year for unlimited access to exhibition tours and hands-on art activities in person and online. Because now we produce programming online, because that way we reach students outside of the SU who cannot regularly and did not come in the past regularly, but now we know because they registered to get the online programming. None of this is actually published on YouTube, so only by request from teacher, they get the link. And that's how we know who is using it. So kids from Wawa, from Shaplo, from Hearst are now able to actually see our exhibitions through different grants. We got 360 cameras, so they can zoom in their classroom and look at the artwork, look at the labels, the text. There is a person walking with them, recorded the tour, and then also instructions for hands-on activity in the classroom and list of materials for teachers that they can use. So we do as much as we can for online students as well.
Well, I think your potential is overwhelming. I think there's great potential in what you're trying to achieve, and it is an exciting project. So I wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors with that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I have more comments than not. I just want to say thank you for coming to us at the beginning of your journey. There's so often that in the past projects come to us when it's like at the end. So what is so exciting is that you are telling the community tonight through this council meeting that there's going to be some wonderful potential changes. And I would think that a lot of people are going to be reaching out and giving you some more ideas. So I just want to say thank you for coming to us now and not at the end when there's so many people that have come at the end and asked for money. So it's going to be a great journey. And I just want to emphasize that since I moved back to Sault Ste. Marie, I have seen increased membership. I have seen increased use of the art gallery. My last point is it's called Algoma Art Gallery. So I'm not going to ask the question, but I know that you're reaching out to many people in Algoma because it serves all of Algoma. And so as you move ahead with this project, I'm sure you'll be going out and looking for funding sources and so forth, all through Algoma. So well done. Look forward to the next update. And if there's anything I can do, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is quick. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Yasmina. You're citing the staffing shortages. Is that due to not being able to find folks that are qualified for these positions? Or why is that happening? And perhaps I'm sort of asking because I think there is a real future in the fine arts, and a lot of times kids are being steered out of that. So maybe you can shed some light on some jobs that you have available at the gallery.
Well, at this point in time, we don't have any immediate vacancy because we just filled 2 positions in the month of September.
Amazing.
So, but there is, but there will be, we need more anyways. As Mark was saying, we need to do this incremental increase because if we want to expand our programming, we need more human resources to do it, not just financial resources per se. I mean, yes, that costs money, but we do need people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one of the main reasons is that we are not able to find the right candidates easily. So for some positions, we had to advertise multiple times. We were very fortunate that we actually got these 2 positions fairly easily, but in the past, we had a lot of issues finding the right people and also attracting the right people to move to the SU. So one of the 2 people that we hired actually moved here from Southern Ontario for this job. So we are very, very happy that this young woman decided that Sault Ste. Marie will be her home. And she's very excited and working on school tours, Councillor Zagordo.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to highlight that I think what you're doing is great. I think that there is a place for everyone to follow their dreams. And so sometimes, folks that are being skirted out of the fine arts, I would encourage them to continue down that path because I personally know, someone who's been quite successful, who sits on your board, Katrina Thibodeau.
Yes.
Not sure if she's still here or not, but, quite successful in the fine arts. And so more than anything, I guess I just really want to push kids to follow their dreams. And do what they're best at. And so I applaud you for having vacancies and opportunities for folks to be able to follow those dreams. So thanks.
Well, thank you. That is really what we want. And every year we hire local people from Algoma University, not so much from the college actually, but university, yes. We do hire people from the university as summer students, or some of them were on permanent staff, but they moved on their own, by their own wish. So they moved on.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Anyone else? Questions or comments on this matter? Just, we've been at it for quite some time, so I'll try and be brief, but I've had the benefit of sitting on this building task committee when I was a councillor, and I think basically the work wrapped up in terms of the meetings of the building task force just as I was taking this office. So I've got a good background and in-depth understanding of how we got to the point that we're at today, and I've benefited enormously from learning about the workings of the gallery and the difficulties that they're having and the potential that they have. And I think you see some of the potential in the correspondence received by Dr. Bondar today, saying, all but telling us that she'd like the Art Gallery of Algoma to be the permanent home for her collection at some point. The art gallery isn't in the state of repair that it ought to be to accept donations like this. And it's like every other asset we've got. It's new, it gets old, we have to build new, or we have to update it. We just did it with the McMeekin. 20 years ago, it was the John Rhodes. Sometime in the next foreseeable future, it's going to be the art gallery. Whether that is a new build, whether that is a new location within an existing building, or whether that is a combined service with something else, all to be determined. But it is something that we're turning our minds to at this very early stage with the intention of getting there at some point in the future, provided we can afford it. Our gallery in Thunder Bay is an example that's been raised on a number of occasions. The city of the art gallery altogether in Thunder Bay was about $50 million. The city of Thunder Bay put in $6 million. The balance of it came from the federal government, which put in $35 million, the province, and external partners. So there is the opportunity for great partnerships and for levels of funding from other, or for funding from other levels of government, I should say, when you go down this road. But I think the art gallery needs to get a bit further down the road before those conversations can happen, so that a funding agency or a funding level of government might be able to say, here's what's proposed, here's what we can put into it. So I encourage you, as you work forward on that work. The city is a partner in the gallery, I believe we're the landowner and possibly the building owner. Maybe the AGA owns its own building and leases land, but we are a partner in your continued success. We fund you on an annual basis, but it is clear that you're coming to the end of the line of that building. And we're working with you, and we'll continue to work with you on finding a solution to those difficulties. And the price and the location and the structure of how that looks is all work we've got ahead of us. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to the hard work ahead.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I believe that brings us to the consent agenda.
Yes, it does.
Councilor Bruni. Councilor Bruni? Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 7.5, sanitary sewer rate. And I guess the question goes to Carl. I totally understand regarding in 2025, you want to meet the regulatory requirements for the city for the biosolids management facility. My question is it possible, for instance, the month of June, July, and August, we can keep it as is? Only because it is summertime and spring. We encourage people to improve their properties, gardening, etc. So I guess my question to you is it possible, and how much would it affect your goal of 2025?
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruni, I think maybe I'd deflect that to finance, to Michelle, who's here.
I'm sorry. Sure.
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruni, I wouldn't be able to project that until I would talk to PUC to see what the water usage is during that time, to see what the impact would be. I suspect it will be fairly high during that time frame, so it will decrease the revenue more than just a prorated amount for those months.
Would we be able to defer this? We get answers, Mr. Mayor. I'm just asking.
I suspect we would, but I think the CAO would probably want to comment on the impact of that.
Right.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruni. As the report states, we need to increase the sanitary sewer surcharge to provide finance in future projects. This increase in and of itself will only allow us to address immediate needs. It's quite likely that as we go through our sanitary sewer master plan and other studies we're doing over the year to come, that we will need further increases to the sanitary sewer rate or surcharge in order to pay for the infrastructure needs that we're going to have. The report notes that we are right now, I believe, the lowest surcharge rate in Northern Ontario. And I would hesitate to look at a prorated structure, because the fact is we need the funding as we've estimated out at this increase. And to be quite frank, we're probably going to be back before you in future years with other recommended increases to the surcharge.
I just wish council about the taxpayers. I mean, we are going to experience a tax increase, obviously. Right now, we don't know what it is. And I'm sure more items will come to council for budget deliberations. And I think we need to sit back and we need to help out the residents as much as we can. I know it's been a concern of many residents. I campaigned, and actually after the campaign, people did call to see, because I believe during the pandemic what did we do with the water bill? Did we would call?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, we did defer collecting the sewer surcharge 4 times during the pandemic. We also reduced it substantially in 2015.
Yes.
So we certainly have looked out for the taxpayer in those circumstances. That being said, this is a core infrastructure of the city and a core service the city provides.
I'm not asking
and
to
we need to be able to provide it.
Mr. White, I'm not asking to eliminate it. What I'm asking is maybe to keep it at 70% for those 3 months. That's all I'm asking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, we would have to do the calculations to see how that would affect it. I'm off the top of my head, I would have to tell you for what our needs are, we may have to look at asking for a bigger increase then and defer it, part of it over those 3 months. I mean, we're looking at the total amount of revenue we need to add.
Well, I want to bring forward, and it's up to the council what they want to do with it, but thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions on that, Councillor Bruni? Comments? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. Thank you, Councillor Bruni, for bringing this up. I received many calls from constituents in the summertime on exactly what you're getting at. So if you want to work with me or together on this, I'd be happy to help you. Thank you.
Councillor Gordo.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Rumial, just wondering what would be the consequences of not increasing the sanitary sewer rate at this time, generally and specifically. In other words, what is it that we're looking to do or repair?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Zagordo. So listed some of the pressures some of the immediate pressures. The biosolids management facility goes in part with the collection of household organics, which is regulated in 2025. So we need to have a facility on board in an amount of time to be able to process that material. Other pressures we have are our UV disinfection system in the East End plant is become obsolete. It's not being supported anymore by the manufacturer. So there'll come a point in time shortly where we can't get parts for it. So that's a fairly big project. We have a second phase of the West End treatment plant, which includes new primary and secondary clarifiers, UV disinfectant systems. These are all pressures, all add up to us needing to have a proper funding source to be able to put into this infrastructure. And as Mr. White said, it's core infrastructure. It's not like the sewage doesn't stop, it keeps coming.
So these are pretty serious things that need updating or as we're stating them. So in other words, the longer we wait, more it will definitely cost.
These are pressures that are not going to go away, and it has to come from somewhere. There are some projects that we could push off. There are many that we can't, that have to be the operational requirements that Public Works has to deal with, and the PUC running our plants. They're all pressures that are adding and increasing, and costs that are rising. and they're not going to go away. The only other option would be to borrow.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Venezuela.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Carl. I just want to get some clarity from your report, page 4, when we go into the fees. So currently, based on the 2022 study, Sault Ste. Marie has the second lowest sanitary fee. The average fee is $678. So when you're looking at the recommended increase to 80% of water, the average residential water usage will be $437.40, which is $36.45 per month per household. Would that be correct, Carl?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Venezuela, I'd like to pass that off to Shelley again. That was the finance portion of the report.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezo-Allen, that's based on the 2022 BMA study.
Okay.
And their North comparators that they provide. So you can also find that on our website. But yes, we are one of the lowest rates. And if you look at the red line on there, it also shows percentage of water. In most cases, a lot of the municipalities are 100% or more of the percentage of water.
Okay, and then the revenue will be 3.3 million if we do that for debt servicing, especially in terms of the biosolids. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we still only have high level estimates for those. And you know the environment that we're in with construction projects right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've got a few questions on this if there's no other councillors. Mr. Rumio, the sewer surcharge is only charged to individuals who are on municipal sanitary services, right?
Mayor, that is correct.
So if we don't increase the sanitary sewer surcharge to pay for the projects that you describe in the report, would it be a fair assumption that we would need to collect from the general tax base the money to pay for what we are short in the sanitary funds?
Mr. Mayor, yes, that would be an option, as well as borrowing as I.
And the borrowing gets repaid by the general tax levy, does it not?
Exactly.
Madam CFO.
To you, Mr. Mayor, or to you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and actually the projections that we have, we are already borrowing for those projects that were listed.
Even with the increase?
The increase is for the debt servicing.
Gotcha. So I am with Councillor Bruni to some great degree, which is that we need to have as minimal pain as possible for the taxpayer, because things are expensive. Things are not getting any cheaper. But the reality is that if we don't increase the sanitary sewer surcharge, which is specific to folks who use municipal sanitary services that are going to benefit from the upgrades municipal sanitary service projects that are on the docket, then we are going to be charging all taxpayers in the community to subsidize that, even folks who aren't using sanitary sewer. So folks, for example, in Ward 5 or in the north end of Wards 3 and 4 who don't use sanitary services are going to be paying for sanitary services in town. So yeah, I don't like it either, but the reality is it's a service that's being paid for by the folks who use it. Do I wish we could give a break to taxpayers? Well, Councillor Bruni and I were on 2015 council that lowered the sanitary sewer surcharge. So for the last 8 years, there has been something of a break. It was previously 100%. It's gone down to 70%. Maybe it ought to have only gone down to 80% at the time, and we wouldn't be quite in this predicament, but we did what we did to give the biggest break possible to taxpayers at the time. It's not perfect, but it is, I think, unfortunately, what we're faced with. And you've seen, I think the staff did a great job in the report of showing that since the 60s, this thing's been bouncing around all over the place. So we haven't found quite the right number, and it will likely continue to bounce around as projects come off the docket, and there's a long runway before future projects need to be done. Maybe it can be lowered again at that point, but At least in the immediate term, we're facing significant costs that can't be covered by what we're collecting. So I think it's the most responsible of the difficult ways that we can do this. I will also know that we aren't choosing to move to organics collection and biosolids processing. The province is requiring us to do that. So we are essentially having to increase our costs to pay for something that the province is requiring us to do, not because we want to, but because we have to. And so it is an indirect download. And for those challenging and difficult reasons, I think that this is a reasonable path forward, understanding that it's probably not the last time we'll see this in our term. Anyone else on 7.5? Councillor Kinnick.
Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Michelle. Our mayor just mentioned it is regulated by the province that we have to do the biosolids facility. Is the province chipping in any money?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, just to be clear, the organics is funded by our landfill, not by the sanitary sewer, but the biosolids is the part that is funded through the sanitary. Engineering can probably answer that piece of the puzzle a little bit better than I can. And at this point, no, there is no funding coming. We are looking, as always, for any grants that we could possibly get to help us with this project.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Councillor Bruni, any other items on consent?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Any other councillors with items on consent? Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. 7.10, upfront funding for concerts and events at the GFL Center. My question is, I believe, for Brent Lamming through you. Mr. Lamming, it talks about how the goal for each of the booked shows will be to break even or have minimal impact on the levy. Can you just give us a little bit of more detailed insight on how break even is calculated? Will the break even calculation calculate simply the soft costs that are directly related just to that show, or will it also include some of those other kind of sunk hard building costs that we see every year with the GFL?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor, it's a great question. Every show or event that we have that comes through the GFL Memorial Gardens, we have a breakout analysis template that we run through with staff. So it takes all the costs into consideration up front for if there's any fees up front, all the fees with food and beverage that are required up front, and then all the ticket prices. So we price the show accordingly with the tickets from that analysis that's done. So we've been very fortunate to bring the shows to the Sioux that are break even or better, and we take kind of a trend over the year where we're at. So with respect to going forward, this $150,000, we don't look to be looking to utilize it. It's kind of a stopgap until we get the shows done, and we're looking for that just to go to purchase that up front.
Okay, so do the break-even calculations include things like beverage sales?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Dufour, that is correct.
Okay, so it's not just fully funded by the ticket sales then?
That's correct.
Okay, and then my question is for when this, I assume this is a budget ask for a levy increase of $114,000?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Dufour, yes, this is for information tonight to be referred to budget.
Okay, so I guess I'm just looking for a little further clarity on why the assumption is made that we need to levy the full increase. Wouldn't the full increase only be needed should nobody go to any of the shows that we purchase?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Dufour, so say if we did have a deficit and we brought in a big show and we did, and there would be a cost. So that would go towards that 114,000. So we're suggesting it as a pilot and we'd be coming back to council. So we'd still hope to be at a break-even point, but in case we weren't, that would be the stopgap to bring back to council, saying that would cost us this year up to that amount.
Okay, but wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that if you're booking these shows that, at least some measure of people are going to be attending the show, buying a ticket and having a drink. So I guess I'm just having a hard time with the one-for-one relationship of what we need to levy at the beginning of the year in order to just have an overage fund for staff to be able to book shows.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councilor Dufour, maybe I can explain it this way. So right now we don't have a caveat to buy a show up front. So this would allow us to buy the show up front right now instead of having to come to council to get a special motion passed in order to buy a show. So to expedite staff's process, get an opportunity, we'd review it internally. It would go through the deputy CAO, the CFO, and then through that potentially ask for delegated authority. If it was supported at budget, we come back in January, ask for that delegated authority. So essentially it allows staff to buy the shows up front to be more efficient in the process.
Totally, I understand all of that completely. I'm just not understanding why we would levy the entire amount. Because presumably the fund is being paid back by the proceeds from the show. Is the budget request for like an operational increase, or is a one-time capital increase just to create the fund for the 2-year pilot?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Dufour, this is for the operational increase to allow for that funding. So it's not a capital, it is an ongoing funding request.
Okay, so then every time someone goes to the show and buys a drink, they're essentially creating municipal surplus.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Dufour, as I said, our break evens, we don't lose a lot of money, but we don't make a lot of money on the shows either. So it really gets close to the year and we track that on an annual basis.
Okay, I guess I'm just getting at when it does come to us in budget, it seems to me that perhaps we could be levying a lesser amount as a buffer with the, I think reasonable expectation that staff are going to be coming close to and still able to bid on these larger shows and come close to breaking even. So I guess we'll table those further questions for when we're in budget, but thanks. I think it's a good program. I'd love to see staff be able to do this. Thanks.
Anyone else on 710? I just have a follow-up from Councillor Dufour's questions there. Would it be, and we can of course debate the quantum of it at the budget meeting, but would it be a similar outcome if, say, we took money from a reserve, whatever reserve we had the ability to do so, and paid for the show up front and then paid the reserve back with the proceeds of the ticket sales? That achieved the same thing? Understanding that you're not sure if you'd break even or not, but would it achieve essentially what you're trying to do here?
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly how we intend it to work. So even though we're requesting a pilot on funding to go on, it's a one-time request per show. So we want to have a pilot to allow us to do this over the year. So what you're saying is the way we would approach it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That gives me a better understanding. Thank you. Councillor Dufour, any other items on consent?
No, that's it.
Council, any other items on consent? Councillor Gardy?
Just a comment on 7.2 Shatrick Drive, the hill there and the work that staff's looking to procure. I just want to say that it's glad to see that their staff's looking at making improvements to this hill. As people who reside out there know, it can often be hazardous, and I know on bad winter days or fall days, can prove very challenging for garbage collection and recycling vehicles. It needs to be safer, and on behalf of the residents of Ward 5, I know Mr. Councillor Scott and I, specifically those who live out there, will be quite appreciative of any improvements that can be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Any other items on consent for you, Councillor Gardy? Or sorry, anyone else on 720? Any other items on consent for you, Councillor Gardy? Okay. Anyone, Councillor Caputo, items on consent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 7.4, the strong mayor powers. I appreciate the report. I think it's very well done. I think the province has left a lot of questions, which I guess leaves us with a lot of questions. But my question for, I think, CAO White is, in this report, there's a lot of talk about like what Mayor Shoemaker plans to do. Is there a way for us to incorporate like a safe hold or some type of plan where we would have a new incoming mayor discuss how they would use these powers in the future, should they still be present? Or how does that work? Like, is there any way to sort of, I don't know, safeguard? I don't really know what word to use, but I think you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo. I know what you mean. I don't think we can answer that fully tonight. So as noted in the report, the mayor has indicated what his approach is going to be on a few things. We don't know exactly how that's going to work. The regulation has not been, isn't in effect quite yet. We do want to see if there are any wording changes in it. And we're certainly still seeing how this is playing out in the other communities that have been granted strong mayor powers. There may be avenues such as the delegation of authority that, depending on how it's written, may be a one-time delegation of authority that can't necessarily be reversed by a future mayor. But we really won't have those answers to you, for you until probably the next council meeting, November 20th. By that time, the regulation would be in force. And we would start looking, and the mayor at actioning his intentions from the report.
Okay. I just wanted to ask the questions because I think it's something that's important and sort of on everyone's minds. There's a lot of unknowns here. So it does make me a little uneasy, but you know, with credit to Mayor Shoemaker, it's a little easier to swallow knowing you know, your stance on these. So I do appreciate your candor there. And again, the report to staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this question is to the CEO or to Ms. Fields, but the last line on immunity, it says a decision made or power exercised legally and in good faith will not be subject to a challenge by a court because of unreasonableness or perceived unreasonableness. Does any decision enacted under the strong mayor powers also fall under our integrity commissioner and corporate code of conduct, or does this immunity have a relationship there?
I'll defer this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour. I am not exactly sure. I would assume that if someone acted outside of the code of conduct, there would be a different avenue to go. I think the challenge of not being able to challenge a mayor on his, for example, if he brought a bylaw that people didn't like, but it was, and even if it was unreasonable, but it was made in good faith, then it wouldn't be challengeable.
Okay, thanks. Just seems like an odd clause, so appreciate hearing your opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Anyone else? Councillor Zagordo.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to CEO White. Just wondering, when strong mayor powers and the like are passed down by the provincial government, like what form do they take? Are they for municipalities and councillors to decide on, or are they law that are passed down to every municipality in the province? In other words, is there choice in these types of mandates that are passed down to municipalities?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Zagordo. The strong mayor powers are tied to the advancement of the housing agenda that the province has. You'll recall the last meeting where we were agreeing to abide by the target of new housing that the province has asked us to follow. We did that because we agree on the need for housing, and we want to be eligible for some of the additional funding that may flow from that. The province did tie the strong mayor powers to that agenda and have done so in the form of a regulation which is subsidiary legislation to the Municipal Act, and there are references to the Municipal Act in the regulation. So it is law that's passed by the province. It doesn't apply to every municipality at this time, only the municipalities that have received housing targets from the province. I'm not sure of the total number. I would think it's probably around the 40 municipality range right now. But it is something that it's not necessarily a choice as far as how your municipality fits under the legislation. As noted in the report, though there are some choices that are to be made by the mayor in utilizing the powers, and that's what the report lays before you.
Is it fair to say that outside the housing mandate that mayoral powers do not apply, or is it only in association with that mandate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Zagordo, it's certainly been the narrative of the province is that the powers are completely attached to the housing agenda. A plain reading of those powers would indicate otherwise. There are other powers there that are powers that could go beyond that scope.
So we can't speak to future mayors and things of that sort, but I do want to commend Mayor Shoemaker for his commitment to the democratic process and on from that point. So
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Anyone else with questions on this report? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Caputo. Other matters on consent?
Just more of a comment on 7.16, the Anti-Hate Advisory Committee. I really want to thank staff for putting this together. I know that you worked really hard on these terms of reference, and I encourage community members to come forward. I know I had a lot of people in my inbox when the motion was first passed. So I look forward to seeing who gets appointed to this committee and seeing the good work that this will bring to our community. So again, thank you so much, especially to Mary and Travis and Tom. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Other councillors with items on consent? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Item 7.17, the financial assistance for national sports competition. I just want to make a comment. It really makes me proud that we receive these and we're able to support local individuals that are going off to do some sports. And I'm going to use this opportunity to also say thank you for the organizers of the curling group this past weekend for hosting and doing such a great job for the international curling event. So this kind of ties in promoting curling, promoting those with a certain skill set. I think it's important as a community, such as 7.17. It's nice that we can help our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Anyone else on 7.17? Councillor Hollingsworth, any other items on consent? No. Councillor Vesuelen.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Anderson on 7.14, the Waterfront Design Plan Funding Agreement. I think it's wonderful news that Destination Northern Ontario and Tourism is putting forth some funding to look at the activation of our waterfront. If you want to give us just a high level summary, I think some good news today would be great.
For you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vesno-Allen, thank you for asking. So this is a joint initiative between Tourism Sault Ste. Marie, Destination Northern Ontario, and the City of Sault Ste. Marie. Activating the waterfront, I know, has been a priority for the city, and the strong connection between the waterfront and the downtown, including Queen Street Plaza and all sorts of future initiatives. The Tourism Sault Ste. Marie Board is just wrapping up their strategic plan, and waterfront activation and downtown activation has been identified as a priority. I'm sure, as you all know, we're getting thousands of people and visitors utilizing waterfront on an annual basis. We had about 4,000 cruise ship passengers this year, 13,000 individuals using the Miss Marie, and next year we'll be having our double-decker bus, which I know is very important to the mayor, and I think it's a great initiative that we're looking forward to seeing. What we're going to be looking at is ways to activate the waterfront, look for ways to improve the existing assets and potentially add new assets, as well as look at the potential for economic impact. So looking at those connections on the major streets, such as Spring Street, items such as food trucks, as other seasonal vendors, really trying to draw those individuals from the waterfront to Queen Street.
When do you anticipate the plan's going to be ready, Travis?
Per the terms of the funding agreement with Destination Northern Ontario, we're hoping to have that plan wrapped up by March 31st of 2024.
Excellent. And I look forward to you presenting it to council after that. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyone else on 7? Yeah, Councillor Gardy.
Yeah, this might not be pertinent, so I'm sure you'll tell me, but through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Anderson, Travis, would this plan encompass more readily available access to the water as well? Could it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardy. Yeah, we will be looking at increasing access, whether it be for active transportation for residents and visitors in terms of connecting to, as mentioned, Queen Street and the businesses along the waterfront. So we're hoping to really open up the waterfront and make it accessible for all.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Anyone else on 714? Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Councillor Venezuelan, any other items on consent? Councillor Spina?
Just one, Mr. Mayor, 7.1, outstanding council resolutions.
They are all outstanding, I can tell you that.
Well, I guess I don't have any questions then. I'm going to suggest my questions for CEO White. And I think Councillor Gardy has brought this up in the past when we've seen this list. There's stuff that dates on here back to 2017, 2018, 2019. Is it possible to get some kind of, by the next meeting, a report back indicating which ones we can just vote off of this list? For example, we've heard great news on the double-decker bus tonight. I don't think we need the downtown trolley motion any longer. I think that satisfies that. If something's been on this list since 2017, is it really important? Do we really need it? I don't know. But looking down this, I really want staff to spend their time working on the stuff that is very important today and not the stuff that was important 6 years ago that we haven't gotten to yet. And if we haven't gotten to it in 6 years, perhaps doesn't fit with one of our current priorities. So is it possible to have that come back to us with the next meeting with a list that we can perhaps remove some of these items?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, certainly generally speaking, staff would always be in favor of having items voted off the outstanding council resolution list. So certainly staff can look at it and provide some feedback for the next meeting as to once we feel council can knock off the list. They do have to be removed by council. Once a resolution is passed, it's the property of council as a whole. Right. So that's why they're on there.
Right. Okay. So good. Do we require a motion for that to say bring that back at the next meeting, or is it sufficient to have this discussion now? I'm not sure.
It certainly appears to me that the rest of council agrees with you, Councillor Spina. So we'll just take that under advisement and bring you something back at next meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Spina. Just on that point, it's also open to us as council to direct the removal of these. So if there are, I will give an example. There's a motion here from 2019 that Councillor Hilsinger and I brought on a complete streets proposal for Willow Avenue, Northern Avenue, and Pine Street. I think that's all generally being incorporated into our active transportation master plan. And so if council so wished, it could bring a motion directing that this be removed because it's covered elsewhere. Or for, as you mentioned, the downtown trolley example, council could bring a motion directing that that be removed. So if any one of you, or any two of you, I should say, wished to strike any number of these from the list, you can bring a motion at any time to do that, and council would vote on those as they come up. Councillor Spina, any other items on consent? Anyone else with any other items on consent? I would just want to make a comment on Hub Trail license of occupation agreements with the Algoma District School Board and Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority. Both have been and continue to be great partners in the extension of the Hub Trail, specifically into the Northern Community Center, as is being extended here. And their terms of use are very favorable to the municipality, and the municipality, or the residents of the municipality benefit greatly from the willingness of both agencies to cooperate in putting Hub Trail spokes on their property. So thank you to both of those agencies and organizations for helping us expand our Hub Trail westbound. Seeing no other matters on consent, we can have a vote on the consent agenda. Motion's been read, Madam Clerk.
It's a motion by councillors Kinnick and Caputo, resolved that all items listed under date October 30, 2023, agenda item 7, consent agenda, be approved as recommended.
All in favor? That carries unanimously.
And that will bring us to regular. So 8.6.1, the property expropriation plan for 350 Fifth Line East.
Councillor Zagordo? Councillor Zagordo? Could I have you take the chair?
So this is property expropriation plan for 350 Fifth Line East. The mayor has a conflict because the city is a client of the law firm on this issue. The motion is by councillors Kinnick and Zagordo. Oh, it actually is a bylaw 2023-180. So there is a report and then there's a bylaw. And the bylaw also is a motion by councillors Kinnick and Zagordo, resolved that bylaw 2023-180, being a bylaw to acquire by expropriation the lands known municipally as 350 Fifth Line East, be passed in open council this 30th day of October 2023. Just going to remove that from consent and open it for a vote. I've got the big. It's really slow. Okay, bylaw 2023-180 should be open for voting.
Jens?
So that carries unanimously. And then Councillor Spina, I didn't get your vote in the affirmative.
Sorry, I have one question on that. Just procedurally, I'm not sure. Do we need a different mover or seconder for Councillor Zagordo as he's sitting in the mayor's chair?
Are correct.
I'll do so on his behalf.
Yeah.
So then that will bring us to agenda item 8.7.1. It's a rental housing incentive program for 360 Northern Avenue, and the mayor is conflicted because the applicant is a client of the law firm on this issue. I have a motion by councillors Bruni and Caputo resolved that the report of the junior planner dated October 30, 2023 concerning rental housing incentive program 18 amended 360 Northern Avenue be received, and that council authorize a 4-year incremental tax grant, 75%, 75%, 50%, 25% for the amended CIP application of the proposed 108 unit development at 360 Northern Avenue, subject to the following. One, that the municipal tax grant applies only to the increase in assessment resulting from new construction, and after the grant program is completed, full municipal taxes will apply.
Any questions on motion? All in favor? Against? None.
And I'll be affirmative for you. So that carries. That will bring us to agenda item 9.2, bike lane link. It's a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Spina, whereas the Ontario government has been working towards a province-wide cycling network for several years to connect municipalities and towns to promote tourism. And whereas according to the province of Ontario, about 50% of the network routes are existing, meaning they have been implemented and are currently identified as a cycling route in Ontario. And whereas the Garden River portion of Highway 17B has a dedicated cycling lane on the shoulder of the highway that connects with the provincial cycling network. And whereas this cycling lane ends at the city limits of Highway 17B, where cyclists cannot safely continue to bike into the community of Sault Ste. Marie without navigating through high volume traffic such as transports. And whereas building a cycling link from the top of Fournier Road along the south side of Trunk Road to join the already existing Highway 17B cycling lane will help improve safety. And whereas a large welcome cyclist sign marking the entire city biking network would be an asset to cyclists if erected at the entrances to the city limits. Now, therefore, be it resolved that staff be requested to report back by April 2024 with recommendations on the possibility of constructing a welcome sign with existing city biking lanes and on the cost and design of a link for cyclists from the end of the bike trail at Highway 17B to the city's existing cycling route on Queen Street, and whether there are funding opportunities available from other levels of government.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
I think it's pretty well straightforward. I want to say thank you to my ward mate for seconding it. We as a community pride ourselves in having many different cycle opportunities. And there's just that one area that was brought to my attention from a biking group that does create a safety concern. And I just want to emphasize that our staff are usually excellent at finding grant money. And so I'm hoping that they can start looking at some opportunities to use some of maybe provincial money or federal money to make it a little more safer for cyclists. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Spina, anything to add?
Not really, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I'm happy to second this. It's an often forgotten short link of roadway where cyclists are trying to navigate between Fournier Road and where the traffic lights are at the intersection before you head into Garden River. And it is a rather unsafe portion of road. So I'm very happy to support this and thank Councillor Hollingsworth for bringing it up.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Any other council questions or comments? Seeing none, we can have a vote on the matter. All in favor? That carries.
That will bring us to item 9.3, traffic calming. I have a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Caputo, whereas a study completed by the Canadian Automobile Association reveals that speeding is at the top of the list of bad driving habits. And whereas according to the Traffic Injury Research Foundation, traveling even 10 kilometers per hour over the speed limit increases the likelihood of a collision by 60%, while saving the average driver only 4 minutes on their commute. And whereas the rise in speeding and stunt driving prompted the Ontario government to introduce tougher fines and penalties. And whereas speeding continues to be a dangerous reality on Sault Ste. Marie roads, such that the city has established a speed management task force to look at methods to reduce speed. And whereas one effective method communities are using is a road diet configuration to calm traffic. This may include narrowing of travel lanes through widening of sidewalks, landscaping, or inserting raised medians in the center of the roadway. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the issue of traffic calming measures, including but not limited to road diet design methods, be referred to the Speed Management Task Force for a recommendation back to council on their implementation whenever a new street is constructed and or is resurfaced and or altered to manage traffic volume and speed.
Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I just want to first one basically emphasize to staff, Carl and the whole entire committee for educating us on there's so many different methods onto reducing speed. I think it's fair to say that many of our constituents contact us all throughout the community that speed is quite excessive. And I just want to emphasize that we hear you. Staff behind the scenes are working very hard on coming up with methods to ensure that we do slow down speeders. And I know that our staff member, Carl, has updated us on some other methods. And I know that we as council are going to be basically debating about basically other potential solutions. But anyway, this is just a good start. It is a start to basically look at all our roads and see how we can make our roads more safe. But thank you also, Councillor Caputo, for seconding it. And also Councillor Bruni for being on the committee and with your support as well. Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just on this, I think it's important to note that traffic calming measures like speed bumps or speed humps or speed tables or whatever we're calling those are really, in my opinion, and I would say that it is a fact, are meant to sort of correct things in a road that is not constructed properly to keep speed down. So now if we're going to be reconstructing roads, when Councillor Hollingsworth brought this forward, I just thought it is something great that can affect change long beyond when we're sitting here. And that was something that she had mentioned to me. So seeing these roads through being reconstructed to be like more winding, you know, a little thinner, however they have to get there to calm speed. I was very happy to support that. My one question in the motion, though, is it is referring back to the Speed Management Task Force for a recommendation every time that there is a road reconstruction. Is the Speed Management Task Force meant to be for a long time, or will that be disbanded? Is this a power that should be given to the Speed Management Task Force, or should it be given elsewhere?
Perhaps my reading of this is that the Speed Management Task Force would make a general recommendation on capital projects going forward, as opposed to recommendations on each capital project that comes before us. But is that, what do you take from this, Mr. Rumiel?
Mr. Mayor, I understand it the same way, is that the Speed Management Task Force make a recommendation that we would make a practice official that we would consider a road diet whenever resurfacing or reconstructing a road. But we'll review the resolution and report back as well.
So they'll review the resolution and then that will sort of stand.
I think what will come of this is that the resolution will go to the Speed Management Task Force and they'll come forward back to council with what they see as the best path forward for us to approve ultimately, though.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Capture that, Mr. CAO? Yeah. Any other questions or comments on the matter? Councillor Kinnick?
I just have one question. I think this is a really good motion brought forward, but I don't see anything specifically to residential areas. I just don't want to see road diets on, Great Northern Road, second line. I would like to see this more in residential areas, cut through streets, especially. For example, like residential areas in Toronto, they have speed bumps in front of houses, 30 kilometers an hour. The four-way stops or the stops are turned into roundabouts at intersections through residential areas. That's what I'm seeing. So with this direction, is this incorporating all like trucking routes, everything like this is going to be under review, or is this specifically only for residential areas?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, my understanding would be that it would be more of the collector level roads, like a 4-lane road that is turned into a 3-lane road. Maybe cycling lanes or a reduction in traveled width. We don't generally apply the traffic calming policy to major arteries or to main arteries. We don't apply it to.
Thank you very much.
If you're looking for an example where this might have helped, Black Road is a good example. It's beautifully reconstructed, but it's straight, wide, flat. And of course, traffic now travels at 90 kilometers an hour. But had it been a bit more winding, narrower, had there been some active transportation aspects incorporated into it, you might have slowed traffic down a little bit. So that's not a residential road, I would say. It's kind of a collector, arguably on the borderline of an arterial, but that's I think an example of what the councillors were trying to get at and saying, look at how you're building these roads to try and prevent people from driving so fast. So see other questions unless there are any. We can.
So we're kind of.
Okay. And that's the recorded vote on the system. We'll have hand vote. All in favor?
That's unanimous.
It carries unanimously.
It's to bylaws. Motion by councillors Kinnick and Segordo, resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda under date October 30, 2023, save and accept bylaw 2023-180 be approved.
All in favor?
I have a motion by councillors Bruni and Caputo. Resolved that this council move into closed session to discuss one item concerning a proposed disposition of land, one item subject to solicitor-client privilege, and one item relating to a plan to be applied to negotiations. Further be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the council may reconvene in closed session to discuss the same matters without the need for a further authorizing resolution.
All in favor?
Got a motion by councillors Bruni and Caputo that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? That carries. Thank you, council.